Testing, testing, testing. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Put it like way down. Close this. Alright, we're in a match now. This is Vintage Survival of the Fittest. Let me put the music back on here. Hopefully it's not too loud. One there. Won the die roll. Friendly opponent. Alright, so we've got Chalice, Survival of the Fittest, some lands, and a Bazaar. This hand's not great. It can't play the Survival until turn 2. No Elvish Spirit Guide or Moxen to help power that out, which is a little rough. But it does have the Bazaar, which could put a Baskin Wall into play. Not really a big deal. I'd have to find some Vengevines to make that worth it. And then it has the Chalice, which could be good depending when I'm playing against. I think I'm going to keep this on the upside that it does have a Survival and a Bazaar. I probably won't play the Bazaar right away. I think I just want to put a land down so I could turn to Survival. And then whether or not I Chalice on 1 or 0, I'm not quite sure. I'm still fairly new to this format. I think because I'm going to be spending my mana on Survivaling, I want to just put it down on 0 right away. And then can put a fetch out there and pass the turn. As far as what I'm supposed to be fetching for, I'm not quite sure. Library of Alexandria means it's probably a control deck, which should be a good matchup. I was playing in the free queues earlier and had my best matchups against control. Do I need to fetch here? I don't think there's any reason to. So Ingot Chewer, that's something I can pitch to Survival. I think I just want to play this Forest. Fetch out a Taiga. Taiga turns on my Ingot Chewer if I do need it, and Anger, which is in the deck here. Otherwise, it doesn't do much. Cast Ancient Grudge, essentially the same thing as Ingot Chewer. My other options would be Savannah if I had a Thalia, or were planning to cast a Thalia, or Trop if I wanted to turn on Wonder, which I'm not really doing yet, not many creatures. So I think just the Taiga is good for now, and then I have a Wooded Foothills if I change my mind and want something else later, which I might want to pick up a Thalia. But for now, let's just try and resolve a Survival. Sorry if the audio doesn't sound great. I didn't really do any testing. I was just doing nothing when I started this league, so I thought I might as well put it on the internet because there's not tons of video of this deck. and just looking at the list doesn't give you a good idea of how it plays. So I wanted to put something out there that people can watch and get an idea what it's like if they intend to build this deck in Magic Online. Which, building Magic Online Vintage, something I highly recommend. Great way to play the format since you can't practically play it in paper these days. Alright, so our survival resolved. That's very good news. I can just F6 through the opponent's turn here. Hopefully we stranded like maybe some Moxen or a Lotus in their hand with that Chalice. Okay, so they definitely had stuff to play considering they repealed the Chalice on 0. And this maybe means a Jace will come down. Opponent's in the tank here about what to do with this mana. It's pretty nuts that Library also taps for mana in addition to drawing cards. Let's see if I can get my preview window over here. There it is. Sorry for this forest being ugly art. I totally forgot about my basic forest when I was picking the better art for my duels and my survivals. Stuck with the old art for Wooded Foothills because the new art for Wooded Foothills because I wanted the frame to match with the Zendikars. And then, looks like we're against a combo deck. I was going to say about some other cards. Oh yeah, the Bazaars and Power. The old art is so expensive, I went with the new. Look, we even got our Chalice back in that Time Twister. And a Squee, which we can pitch to survival, start that value engine going. Discard Squee, find a creature, get him back, discard him, find another creature. Okay, so we have an Elvish Spirit Guide here, which at this point in the game is probably just going to be pitched to survival. So we have 4 mana to work with for tutoring purposes. So if we want to go the Vengevine route, we have to, let's see, so we spend 1 mana to turn an Ingature into a Vengevine. We spend our 2nd mana to put that Vengevine into the graveyard. We spend and say get another Vengevine. We spend our 3rd mana to put that Vengevine into the graveyard and get another Vengevine. Now we've spent all the mana we have with our lands. So if we got another Vengevine with that, we couldn't cast it, and we couldn't cast 2 creatures to proc our previous Vengevines. So we can only get up to 2 Vengevines, but then we could get, say, a Basking Root Walla and a Hollow one to trigger our Vengevines. So that seems pretty good. As far as the Chalice goes, I think I might put that back on 0 because I just don't want to spend mana on it. So I will play this Mox. We don't have Bazaar Baghdad anymore, so I'm not that concerned about holding in hand, and we have the survival engine going, so that doesn't really matter. And then I will put this on 0. I'll play a land and crack it for blue. That way, if I get a Wonder into the graveyard, I can do that, give everything flying, because this will fetch out, Tropical Island. Wonder says if it's in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control gain flying. So this Chalice should hopefully resolve. Perfect. And then everything else we're doing plays against counter spells really well because we'll get Vengevines back no matter what. Even if our opponent has Ravenous Trap, because we're only putting 2 into the graveyard, our 3rd card is going to be a Basking Root Walla, which won't go into the graveyard. Or, nope, sorry, Squee has to go into the graveyard as well, so we will put 3 creatures into the graveyard this turn. So, first things first, pitch the Squee, get a Vengevine, pitch the Vengevine, get a Vengevine, fetch out our Trop like we talked about. Pitch that. We have to get the Basking Root Walla first because we have to be able to discard the creature to tutor up the second creature. Getting Hollow One first wouldn't let us do that. So discard a Vengevine and get a Basking Root Walla. Exile our Elvish Spirit Guide here. Use that to pitch Basking Root Walla. We want to make sure we cast it. Not clicking over there, that would dismiss it. And then here we'll find a Hollow One. We've discarded enough cards for Hollow One to be free. We'll get our Vengevines back and they will have haste, as Vengevine tends to have. So we can get in there for 8 damage. Bam. Pass the turn, see what our opponent's got. There's a Chalice on 0, so they can't really play much of their fast mana. If they have like Soul Ring, say their Paradoxical Outcome, they could do that. But Mox In, Mana Crypts, Lotuses, that stuff is all turned off. They do have the Soul Ring. It's something I could destroy with Ingature if I cared enough. Hopefully we can just get in for lethal next turn though. Let's hide that preview window and see if we're still live here. Alright, they just concede. Perfect. So we don't know exactly what they're doing, if they are like a control deck of some kind. Looks to be more of a combo deck because they are playing Time Twister. So I definitely want Pyroblast, regardless of what they're playing. I don't care about Swords, don't care about Priest. Nature's Claim, maybe, if I'm caring about destroying Graveyard Hate. Grudges could come out, they're not that exciting. Chewer lets me tutor up something that can destroy, say, a Grafdigger's Cage, so I like that maybe a little bit better than Nature's Claim, but Nature's Claim can also destroy a Rest in Peace or a Leyline when Ingature can't. I don't even remember what colors our opponent was playing. Did we even see any colors? So I don't know if Rest in Peace is something we should be that concerned with. Take those out for now. They might be playing Paradoxical, some kind of Storm deck, which would make Null Rod good. We do have a Null Rod in the deck already. Thalia seems okay, especially if they're trying to Storm in some way. If they're Paradoxical, that's great. I think Pyroblast for Ancient Grudge is a safe bet because we just know they're playing blue cards for sure. And we don't know exactly what else they might be doing. So for now, I think that should be fine. Could be wrong, but we shall find out soon. So this hand can play a turn 1 Thalia and Survival, and then be able to pitch the other Thalia to Survival as well. Pitch Vengevine to Survival. This seems very good to me. Sorry for my hand bumping the microphone. Alright, so they will fetch on turn 1. Looks like they did some mulliganing based on how many cards are left in their library. They mulligan to 6. Alright, Underground Sea, so this could definitely be a Storm deck, or we could be seeing like a Thoughtseize here. Nope, Night's Whisper, so I'm not well versed enough in Vintage to know exactly what that means. So I think what I do is probably get what am I trying to set up for? Like, what land do I want? I could crack the Lotus for white and then tap the land for green. I think that's what I want to do. So what land am I getting? Either Taiga or Trop. Or even a basic. I don't think I'm that concerned about them wastelanding me, though. I think I'll get Taiga because I brought in Pyroblast. And then I'll cast my power. Cast this one first. Maybe it can bait out a counter spell. because we care more about the Lotus. And we have access to 5 mana here, so we can cast Thalia first to try and bait out a counterspell and protect our survival. You know, we have 2 Thalias, only 1 survival, and the survival is just far more important. So we'll crack that for white, cast a Thalia. If there's Storm and they try to counter this, that's really good for us. And maybe we just cast the second Thalia instead of the survival, because we can keep the survival engine going with Vengevine. We don't need the Thalia in our hand to pitch, and then next turn we can just cast the survival. So let's play Thalia here. And then pass the turn. So I'm going to adjust the mic stand a bit. You might hear some clunking. Alright, mic stand has been adjusted. So let's see what they've got. Just a 3-mana Night's Whisper. That is totally fine with us. Alright, second survival, so we're going to spend all our mana to cast the first one because of Thalia, so we can just get in with Thalia here. We don't have to care about bringing back hasty Vengevines. We'll fetch out a drop here. I don't care that much about Wonder. It doesn't look like they're going to have many blockers. Ancestral, without a way to cast it, would be unfortunate. No, we have Mox Sapphire, so actually we can just get the Savannah in case they bounce our Thalia. Alright, so put down the survival. Hope the audio levels are okay. Let's see what it looks like here. I should have the music relatively turned down. Demonic Tutor. Alright, so we can let that resolve. We really have no other choice. There's not much they can find that they can cast this turn, just some fast mana. So they're trying to set up something for the future, and that definitely seems to signal that they are a Storm deck of some kind. Not quite sure what they could be finding though, and this Thorn is pretty sweet. Or we could start the Vengevine train. We have 2 green sources, so we can only survival twice. Which means if we survival Vengevine away, we can survival the other card away. There's no way we can cast enough creatures to put Vengevine back into play. So I think we just play the Thorn here, or we could end step, send the Vengevine away to get ourselves better set up for next turn. But it would be really nice to just keep taxing our opponent since they're trying to do something stormy here. So I think that's what we want to do. Keep the tax going and just get in with Thalia. Their life total is already pretty low from the Night's Whispers and the Force of Wills, and our Thalia attacking. Nice thing about setting up Vengevine would be next turn if we could return it, we could potentially do lethal damage. But they just Demonic Tutored for something. I don't want them to do something really scary. And I would rather just cut off the things they can do on their turn that might hurt us. Time Vault. Okay, so they might have tutored for the other piece of that combo, which would be the Voltaic Key, which with the Voltaic Key, they can untap the Time Vault, take an extra turn on their extra turn, tap the Time Vault, take another extra turn, and do that over and over again. So we definitely want to kill them here before they can do that. Or get an Ingot Chewer, destroy the Time Vault is something else we can feasibly do. So we can still only survival twice. So we can survival the Vengevine away, say turn it into a Squee that can set us up for some value. And then now, because we still have to be able to cast the Ingot Chewer, and the Ingot Chewer requires tapping our Taiga. So I think what we just want to do is go to combat, swing with Thalia, turn the Vengevine into an Ingot Chewer, cast the Ingot Chewer, and then pass the turn. So we'll put this Vengevine into the graveyard, making sure to leave our Taiga untapped because we're going to need that. Evoke out an Ingot Chewer, target their Time Vault because we don't want to lose to that next turn, and keep taxing our opponent away. Hopefully this turn we could pitch Thalia for Basking Root Walla, pitch Thalia for Basking Root Walla, get a Vengevine back, and we'll unfortunately still not quite have lethal. We'll have to find another green source and get an Anger into the graveyard to do that. Or find another creature that we can cast is an option as well. Okay, that Tolarian Academy is just essentially an island here, only tapping for 1. Nothing we can do on end step because we only have blue mana. Okay, so we just drew a Vengevine, which we can pitch into the graveyard, find a Basking Root Walla, pitch the Basking Root Walla, cast it, and then find, unfortunately, nothing we can cast because we just don't have the mana for it. So there are no 2 creatures we can find here. We can't discard enough cards to make Hollow One happen. No, we can discard 2 cards. So say we discard the Vengevine, discard the Basking Root Walla, and cast it here. Find a Hollow One, and our Hollow One will cost only 1 because only non-creature spells are being taxed. So it looks like that is the line that we want. So green, pitch this Vengevine, and this should give us lethal here. So we want a Root Walla, discard the Root Walla, and cast it for its madness cost. That'll be our first creature this turn. Tutor up a Hollow One. Cast our Hollow One for 1 mana because we've we've discarded 2 cards this turn thanks to a Survival of the Fittest. Get our Vengevines back. And now, unless they Swords to Plowshares a Vengevine, we have lethal. And they can't Swords to Plowshares a Vengevine because we have 2 taxing effects on the board. So it looks like it's just lethal no matter what. Alright, match 1 of my first Vintage League ever. Looks like it went pretty well. We won 2-0. We're against some kind of control combo deck, maybe Paradoxal, something that would run Volt Key. And that seems like a great matchup for this deck. So let's jump back into the queue and see if we can't get another one in here. Problem with Vintage right now is that you wait a really long time on your queues, and sometimes you might just play the same opponent twice in a row. That's why hopefully more of you guys will build Vintage in Magic Online. It's very cheap, can be the same price or cheaper than a Modern deck. This deck was significantly cheaper than a lot of tier Modern decks are. So there's really not much reason to avoid playing it in online like there is in paper. You know, let's fill these queues up. Sorry, I keep messing with the microphone stand here. It's kind of drooping. Probably should have muted it before doing that. I apologize. And now we wait. Let's view the deck. Get that out of the way. So, yeah, we didn't really get a good look at the deck before starting because I was working on setting up this stream while I was in the first queue, and then by the time the stream started, I had found a match. So what we're looking at here, straightforward mana base. The 4 Bizarre Bagdads are utility lands that lets us have, you know, big opening hands with Vengevines, HollowVine, do all sorts of crazy turn 1 things. And then duels here that help us cast our stuff. Savannah to cast Thalia. Taiga to cast some of our hate cards for the artifact decks, or just any decks in general, because pretty much everything plays artifacts in this format. And then, of course, Taiga will also turn on our Anger, which I talked about. Anger and Wonder. You know, Wonder giving everything flying when you control an island and it's in your graveyard. Anger giving everything haste when you control a mountain and it's in your graveyard. So other cards, our set of power here, we have all the Moxen, Lotus, and Ancestral. No Time Walk, it's not really necessary in this deck. And then no Time Twister, of course, far less necessary in this deck when we're caring about our graveyard and really have no need to draw 7. I mean, drawing 7 would be nice, but we're not going out of our way to do it. Chalice, because it's restricted, we can only have 1. And it's a nice little piece of disruption. Really doesn't hurt us very much. You know, we don't cast that many crucial spells at 1 and 0. Like, obviously, our Basking Root Wallas are very important while we're survivaling, but we're not that afraid of, you know, Chalice. Our Chalice is going to lock our opponent much better than it'll lock us when we're, you know, bringing Vengevines back, which doesn't involve casting a spell or casting Hollow Ones, which are 5 drops, so we're not putting a Chalice X, you know, we're not paying 10 for a Chalice, so we never have to worry about those getting cut off. Other things we have going on. Deathrite Shaman. People used to play like Birds of Paradise or Noble Hierarch in this slot. Now Deathrite Shaman's the more popular option. I like Deathrite Shaman over Noble Hierarch just because it's way cheaper. I don't know necessarily how much of an upside you get. You don't have tons of fetches, so it's not as a mana dork as often as a Noble Hierarch is, and it doesn't give you that boost in combat like Noble Hierarch does. But we're typically crashing in with multiple things anyways, so we're not triggering Exalted all the time. And this has Graveyard Hate packed into it, which is really sweet. So I think Deathrite Shaman is probably better, and I like the builds that play Deathrite Shaman over Noble Hierarch. Basking Root Wall, of course, our engine. Madness is for 0. We can pitch it to survival, cast it to help trigger our Vengevines, and still be able to tutor stuff out from survival. The Fittest abilities, just really, really strong. A really great way to tie our deck together. Ancestral, we play it because it says draw 3 cards and cost 1 mana. That's pretty good. Thalia, you know, we are mostly casting creature spells or just not casting spells at all. So she's great at disrupting. We can find her off of survival and, you know, we can cast her, so why not? Ancient Grudge, especially great against the Workshops matchup, but good anywhere, so we can fit it in the main deck. Typically comes out first, though, if we're playing against a blue deck and gets replaced by the Pyroblasts, because Pyroblast is to blue decks like Ancient Grudge, you know, is to shops. Not that Ancient Grudge is bad against all the blue decks, but we have other things like Ingature and Nature's Claim, which are a little bit better at interacting with what they're doing specifically. That might involve artifacts or enchantments, typically meaning like Graveyard Hate, Grafdigger's Cage, Rest in Peace, Leyline of the Void. Null Rod, really good against Paradoxical Outcome because they have so much artifact mana, so being able to cut all that off is very nice. Makes it so their Paradoxical Outcomes are a little worse. They can definitely still beat us through a Null Rod, but it gives us some game. Also really good against shops because it cuts off their things like Walking Ballista and other creatures that may have activated abilities. Thorn of Amethyst, also restricted, just a good disruptive card we can play. We saw how it was great in that last matchup, keeping our opponent off of storming on us and not really taxing us in any way. Elvish Spirit Guide is a way we can tutor up extra cards, put extra things into the graveyard, because it's something we can find that generates mana. That's really sweet. Squee is a value engine with our survival. Oh, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Let's see if I can mute my microphone. Alright, just a spam phone call there, so back to the deck. Yeah, Squee is a value engine. Discard him at the beginning of the upkeep. He comes back. You know, just keeps turning into more creatures. Talked about him during the game. Ingature, also talked about that. I even used it. Great at just tutoring something up, killing an artifact in a pinch. Very nice. Everything else here, Self-Explanatory Vengevines and the Hollow One are big damage dealers. Help us close out the game. Containment Priest, good against, I don't know, Dredgy Reanimator decks, I guess. Good in the mirror. This deck really can't beat a Containment Priest if a opponent resolves it. So, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the deck to really know where Containment Priest is good, but I imagine when I'm playing the matchups, I'll know. Swords to Plowshares, it kills things. So if there's ever a matchup where I really need to kill things, I can bring it in. Energy Flux, more tech for the shops matchup. Probably okay against Paradoxical Outcome as well. Oh, looks like we've been paired. So we can stop the talk and get to playing. Tell our opponent. Looks like it is the same opponent, unfortunately. So we will see that same matchup. So this is a pretty nutty start. We can put 2 Hollow Ones into play on turn 1 with this Bazaar of Baghdad. Just talking to the opponent here. So this will probably be the last game that I stream, just so we don't keep playing the same opponent over and over again. So let's see. I can discard 3 cards. I can also put the Basking Root Walla into play. It doesn't really change the clock, though. So I could keep it to trigger Vengevines later, which I think is something I want to do. So we'll discard a Hollow... No, we will not discard a Hollow One. We want those in our hand. We'll discard an Elvish Spirit Guide. I guess I might as well discard the Basking Root Walla. We don't have a survival anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. We'll just cast it here. We did get a message from our opponent as well. Cast a Hollow One. Cast a Hollow One. Guess I'll just pass the turn. If I would have kept one of the Elvish Spirit Guides, I also could have put Deathrites down on the board, but I'm not like super concerned about that. There's nothing really for Deathrite to eat at the moment. Maybe I should have kept one Elvish Spirit Guide and put one Deathrite down, but then I would have no creatures in hand in case I do draw a survival. And in a pinch, Deathrites can still trigger. Oh, look, I do have survival now, so I guess I'm going to skip this song just because I don't want lyrics going over top of me. So, unless we draw Root Walla here, we can't cast 2 creatures this turn. And we'd have to find Vengevines off our Bazaar anyways. I think we want to do it. We don't need 2 Deathrights, especially when we're choked on mana, so let's just see what we can find. Ancient Grudge, better in the graveyard. Elvish Spirit Guide would let us cast an extra Deathright, but we're just discarding cards anyways, so we'll probably do that. That wasn't great. So let's crash in here with all of our creatures. And now we can play the Deathright. Hopefully we, whoops, wrong color. Hopefully we find another creature to pitch to our survival later, but Deathright gives us lethal next turn, and we can't even cast survival anyway, so we'd have to find a land first. So might as well just put the pressure down while we can. Hope our opponent can't deal with any of our creatures, and we can just close out this game right away. Turned up the music a little bit while our opponent tanks on Sensei's top. Very good art selection from our opponent. I like that Sensei's top art a lot better than the new art. I think it looks fantastic. Right, more Moxen. Opponent's definitely got a lot of mana. If they're playing something like Paradoxical Outcome, they have a pretty good outcome in the making here. For someone who's not familiar with what Paradoxical Outcome does, it's a 4 mana instant. You can pick up any number of target non-land permanents you control, I believe, and then you draw a card for each one you pick up. So say they could tap, their Underground Sea, their Mox, and something else, pick up whatever, replay all the Mox, draw a bunch of cards for having picked them up, generate the Storm count from having replayed them, and generate mana from having replayed them. They can also do a trick where they tap their top to draw a card, pick up the top to the Paradoxical Outcome since it's an instant, and then don't have to put the Sensei's top on top of their library. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with Paradoxical Outcome. They might just be trying to power out a vault key on us here. That might be what the Demonic Tutor's for. Or it could be for other combo pieces. I don't know what else they might have. But it's got to be something that deals with our creatures, ideally, because we can just go to combat and swing for 10. Or, oh yeah, we don't have black mana, so we can't drain for 2 with Deathright. It's not drain, but make them lose 2. Okay, so that's a lot of mana. They can likely cast whatever it was they just drew. Beautiful Lotus there. Okay, drawing with top, so we might see a Paradoxical Outcome here. They do have 4 mana. It's not going to be an amazing outcome because they had to crack the Lotus to do it, but they will still end up drawing 4 cards off this and generating 2 mana. Drawing 4 cards because of the 1 extra that was drawn off the little sensei's trick that we talked about. Okay, they found another Mox. They need to find a source of blue mana if they want to Paradoxal again, which is something really nice you can do, is chain Paradoxal Outcomes together. Okay, and Sensei's Top is back. That'll let them dig 1 card deeper, but you know, who knows if it'll make much of a difference here. They need some type of open mana that can kill one of our creatures. Okay, Time Vault. And they don't have mana to play a key. We can just crash in here for 10. I don't see anything that would really change that. Okay, so we know they are definitely Paradoxal Outcome. The Pyroblasts come in like before. The Ancient Grudges come out. They are trying to win with Vault Key, so that is like some argument to keep Grudges in. Maybe 1. Null Rod is really great, so maybe we do want the second Null Rod. And yeah, the Nature's Claims we probably don't care that much about. Ingature is sorcery speed, which is a big downside, but we can snipe stuff with it, so that's very nice. Dahlia is very good. Maybe we could go down a Wonder since they're not really playing creatures. We don't particularly care about the blockers. They might have Monastery Mentor though, and being able to fly over monk tokens is nice. So we're trying to cut 2 cards. Chalice is great. It's tough. So I left 1 Ancient Grudge in this time because it seems like it could be good. And then I added a Null Rod. Maybe that's just carrying too much. Maybe the Null Rod is good enough. And then I just need something to cut for the second Null Rod. Maybe it's Anger. Maybe we don't care about being quite that fast. It gives our hollow ones haste. Go down a Squee maybe, because the Squee engine we can just tutor for anyways. We don't need the redundant copy. Or the Ingature because it's too slow. Or just don't bring in the second Null Rod. But Null Rod does seem great. They can just bounce it though, but we force them to bounce it, which is nice. It does take 2 of our mana, which we are kind of trying to spend our mana on survival and survival activations. Let's just cut the Squee. Okay, so our opponent gets to be on the play, which is definitely key here in Vintage. We've got a Chalice on 0, then Moxen of our own. Or I guess Moxen of our own, then a Chalice on 0. They do get to play out all their fast mana though, but the Chalice on 0 prevents them from replaying it after Paradoxal Outcoming. I don't really want to listen to this here. We don't have any discard outlets, so we're banking pretty heavily on this Chalice and this Deathrite Shaman. His hand's not great, but it's disruptive, and I do like that. It's slow, though. Very tough. So we have 3 mana sources. I'm going to try it. I don't think it's very good. Music by Starship Amazing, if anyone's interested in that. Alright, so our opponent keeps 6. Let's see where they scry to. They scry to the top. And a preordained, so our Chalice on 0 could potentially be really good here if they don't play out some fast mana. Okay, they will. They definitely will. And they'll play out a top. So we could play a Chalice on 1. I don't think that's that great, though. Could even play a Chalice on 2 if we wanted to, but I don't think we care about that very much. I think we just want to stop them from being able to generate a lot of mana with paradoxical outcomes, and 0 does that best. So we'll play a land. Mox. Just get them all out of our hand since we're going to be chalicing. We could even cast the Elvish Spirit Guide here if we want, which we might want to. Just give us a clock. Gives us an extra green mana, though, for when we do find a survival. But we have Vengevine to discard. Honestly, we could even cast Vengevine next turn. I say we just get a clock going. We have the disruption, so we can, you know, maybe this will be good enough. Just pass through our opponent's turn. Save us some button presses. That's a lot of mana. Okay, so it looks like Paradoxical is happening. They're probably going to be hoping to find a bounce spell to bounce my Chalice. That way they can replay their Moxen. They do have the floating mana for it, so if they have it, very good for them. If they don't, kind of bad for them. You know, they could replay their tops. They don't have to discard the hand size, but they can't replay their Mox and generate mana, etc. Okay, 2 tops, no bounce spell. That's very good. No lands in the graveyard to produce white with, so we can't cast this Thalia. So I think we just cast a Vengevine and crash in for damage. Perhaps I should have considered activating Deathrite on Paradoxical, but I think the increased clock is better. And they don't have the mana to Snapcaster's back or anything yet. They do have the Academy, though, which is scary. But let's just get in there. Okay. Brainstorm, we haven't seen a way to shuffle yet, so that's good. And we have seen a way to shuffle now, so they got a nice Brainstorm in there, have 3 fresh cards in their hand. I'm sure they're looking for something that interacts with us. It looks like they're going to dig a little deeper still. Okay, nothing yet. That's good, we're not dead. And Mox Pearl, we have a Chalice on 0, so we still can't cast our Thalia, unfortunately. But now that we're leaving mana up, we don't need to crash in with Deathrite. We can leave him up to potentially fizzle some kind of Snapcaster effect. And get an extra point of damage out of him as well. repeal on our end step. Yep, that'll happen, and unfortunately we have no way to get this Thalia into play. Yep, that's just gotta happen. Okay, so here come the Moxen. They could just vault key us here, or do that. They can do that too. Yep. So now our Wonder is really good, because it lets us fly over these tokens. And our Deathrite Shaman's really good here because it does let us push through damage over top of the Mentor as well. The good thing about Mentor is we're not dead right away like we would be to Vault Key. Okay, maybe I can auto-yield these triggers if they play something else. Library, which doesn't do much. Always yield. Always yield. So that's a lot of monks. Alright, so this is a big paradoxical outcome. Or not, because they just let those resolve. Looks like they're just replaying tops. Till they have no mana left. So we could put this Chalice on 1 next turn, that way they can't make their monks huge and kill us. They do just have a lot of monks, so they don't really need to do much of making them huge in order to be able to kill us with the monks. But you know, we'll do what we can do. Okay, so combat end step, we will activate Deathrite, take that Paradoxal out of the graveyard. We have 2 damage guaranteed here. We can put a Chalice on 1. So first thing, play the Mox. Probably play the Root Walla. I don't think we play the Root Walla. It doesn't really matter. It gives us another blocker, but cuts off our ability to tutor for a Wonder if we find the survival next turn. Tough choice. So giving us an extra blocker, how much does that help us? They have 8 tokens, so they have 10 damage, and they can effectively double it by casting 1 spell. If they cast 2 spells and they triple it, we're dead anyways, even with the Basking Root Walla as an extra blocker. So I think we just want to Chalice X1, leave the Root Walla in hand, cast Thalia, leave up Deathrite Shaman. We can force them to block and give up a couple monks, or we can just stay on defense. Okay, so they're going to do something here. Or not. They gave us the pump fake like they have something though, and that would let them eat our things, and I do think we just want to stay back on defense. Rely on this Deathrite to take us to victory, or potentially finding a wonder. Alright, so what scary things could they have here? That is indeed a very scary thing. I do believe we just lose to that. Urkel's Recall, huh? Okay, so we can safely concede here. Can I bring up the chat, tell my opponent GG? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, GG, opponent. Let's see. Maybe I'm a little less excited about Pyroblast because just the amount of artifacts and white cards. They don't have that many white cards either. It's mostly just the Mentor. So say I cut that and go up Swords to Plowshares for the Mentor. It's kind of bad everywhere else. So I think this is still just fine. I'll be on the play. We have a Bazaar which can put a Deathrite into the grave. Or I'm sorry, can put a Vengevine into the graveyard, and then next turn we can cast 2 Deathrites to get it back, and have Deathrite online, which is pretty nice. It's not crazy exciting, but I think it's good enough. We can probably pitch this Ingot Chewer. We want to keep this Elvish Spirit Guide since our Bazaar doesn't tap for mana. In order to cast 2 creatures next turn and be able to bring back the Vengevine, we have to have the Misty and the Elvish Spirit Guide as mana sources. So we'll lead on the Bazaar, see what we find. A Lotus, huh? Do we care about the Lotus? So we want to... I guess we get to keep it anyways. It's kind of free if we choose to pitch the Ingot Chewer. And then if we play the Lotus, we can bring the Vengevines back this turn. So I believe that is indeed what we want to do. We can maybe just even pitch the Elvish Spirit Guide instead of the Ingot Chewer. Save the Ingot Chewer for something more important. Go Vengevine, Elvish Spirit Guide, Vengevine. But then if they counter the Lotus, that's really bad for us. So I think we still just pitch the Ingot Chewer. And then we'll play the Lotus. Okay. Crack it for green. Play a Deathrite. Play a Deathrite. Bring back our Vengevines. They have haste. It's a very fast clock. Take 1 to mana burn at the end of the turn here, and then see what our opponent's got. The Ingot Chewer definitely would have been better in the context that our Lotus resolved, but I think it was important enough to keep the Elvish Spirit Guide just in case, because we really needed a way to bring back those Vengevines. And our Elvish Spirit Guide is going to come in handy here because we do get to put out this Null Rod and stop our opponent from doing anything particularly dangerous for us. Get in with the team. I don't even know what color land I want. I guess just a Bayou, so I could potentially activate Deathrite. exile you, tap you, and put you into play. Alright, so that draws out a force. So they really need something that can stop us from attacking here or sweep our board. It looks like they're going to have a lot of trouble doing that. It would start with some Moxen and a Lotus. Alright, and that's the match. So that's it for now with this deck. When I do finish off this league at a later time, I'll try and record it so that way there can be more footage up online. I apologize for you guys only getting to see one matchup, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. The deck has some really cool starts like we saw in the last game there. So thank you for watching, and hopefully there will be more content for you in the future.